Hey guys, today I want to do a follow-up to my previous Darkmantle videos. I want to kind of give you guys my updated thoughts on the set now that AQ is actually out, because I was getting a lot of questions. Do I still stand by my previous videos? Has my opinion on Darkmantle changed since I've had a chance to actually use the gear in AQ? And I kind of wanted to go through, I guess, my updated thoughts. So to give you kind of the summary before we go into each thing point by point, Darkmantle was worse than I thought, specifically for daggers. I want to stress that I have not rated with it as swords, and I've been playing daggers. It's the spec I play. So as daggers, I was disappointed in how many fights in AQ I actually ended up using Darkmantle on. I was disappointed in some of the fights that Darkmantle felt particularly poor. I think the value of it is diminished a lot because the tokens are guaranteed now, so it's easier to get 2.5 tier. And ultimately, because of all these factors, I end up, to be honest, I regret even getting the gear, and I've already replaced it right after our second clear of Cthulhu. And, well, quite frankly, I just wish I had the money back that I spent on the set so that I could have used it on idols for 2.5 pieces so that I could just jump directly to the gear I ultimately want rather than spending money on Darkmantle as kind of the go-between. So again, a lot of the stuff as I go through will not relate specifically to swords. Obviously, the fact that tier is more easily available because the tokens are guaranteed from every boss, and that wasn't a known quantity going in. That reduces the value a little bit of Darkmantle for swords, but obviously swords needs more pieces of gear to want to take off Darkmantle anyway. So the majority of this is going to be pertaining to dagger as I play dagger, and well, that was a lot of the focus of my first two videos as well, was on the set being overrated, especially for dagger. So let's get right into the very first point. All right, so I wanted to elaborate briefly on specifically what I mean when it comes to the tokens in AQ40. So every boss that has the ability to drop a tier token will drop those tokens. So this means that Huhuron, Cthulhu, Viscidus, Twin Amps, Oro, they all drop two of the tokens, one of each type. And that basically means that not only will you get tier a lot faster than otherwise, but also it gives you a chance to purchase idols to, I guess, guarantee that you get the tier a lot sooner. So the money that you did spend on Darkmantle, you can use instead on stuff like specifically the helmet, especially as dagger, considering if you were already phase 4 bis or near bis, the helmet from AQ is better than the Darkmantle set as a whole. That is something you can actually realistically get very, very early, especially if you take the money from Darkmantle and buy Idols of War. Obviously the prices will vary depending on server, but if you can pick up the Idols of War, you will outclass your Darkmantle gear immediately. And so that is something I would recommend you guys do if your guild does not have enough idols right away. Just take that money and put it into the Idols of War, because that helmet token that goes to Rogue has very little competition. There are, depending on how your guild is doing some of the tier gear in AQ, it may vary, but the 2.5 helmets are from what's available off of that token. The Rogue one is the best one. It's not even close. And the second best one is Horde side, the Shaman one, and it is not even good unless they have the full set for the 2.55 set. So what I'm trying to say is it will not take you very long to get the helmet, and especially if you take the money from Darkmantle that you could have spent on it and put it into Idols of War, you're going to get your Death Dealer helmet very quickly. And as a sword rogue, as a dagger rogue, as soon as you get that helmet, you can put away the Darkmantle. So that is specifically what I mean when I talk about the tier. and how the fact that it is more prevalent really devalues Darkmantle. Next, I want to talk about the fights where I ended up taking off Darkmantle, or fights that I used it but it didn't feel as good. So we'll start with first Sartura. I ended up opting, after I died on the first week to her, I ended up opting for a more stamina focused set on Sartura, especially as a rogue, because I'm tasked with trying to stun Sartura as much as possible, or one of her ads, so as few whirlwinds go out as possible. I ended up switching over to a stamina set for my second AQ clear, and felt a lot safer with that on Sartura. So that is, again, not for every case, but for me personally, I ended up using a stamina set on that boss. Also, Viscidus and Huron, I ended up using nature resistance. Now, depending on your guild, you might end up going for like pure damage on Huron. However, in my case, I used nature resistance on both fights, so I did not use Darkmantle. On Twin Emps, I did use Darkmantle, although it didn't feel as good, specifically because there's a lot of running back and forth. That's less auto attack uptime, less chance for Darkmantle procs. And also, as you're kind of running back and forth, starting and stopping fighting constantly, there's an increased chance that you can waste some of the value of the procs. So ultimately, not awful on Twin Emps, but it certainly didn't feel great. And, I was definitely did not feel good when I was using it on that fight. And then lastly, Cthulhu. Cthulhu in phase 1, the set is pretty poor, because a lot of the fight, the eye is going to be facing you, and you are not going to be able to backstab. Obviously where the eye is facing of Cthulhu, like where he's casting an eye beam, that determines whether or not you can backstab him. So if you're not backstabbing Cthulhu as a dagger rogue, you should be letting your energy ramp all the way up, and you should Sinister Strike at the last possible moment. You do not want to go for a Sinister Strike unless you know you're going to be capping out on energy, because the more Sinister Strikes you do on the fight, obviously the less damage you're going to end up doing, because backstab does more damage. So you want to get as many backstabs in as possible, which means you do not want to be using your energy, and you want to let it pull all the way up as close to 100 as you can before finally reluctantly using Sinister Strike if you have to, if Cthulhu never turns such that you can backstab. But that's just for phase 1. Now, in phase 2, you're constantly running around, you're hitting tentacles, and you're focusing on interrupts. You're not really going to be backstabbing much, which means the value of Darkmantle is also diminished, because, well, quite frankly, you're not consistently damaging targets. So all in all, I think the value of Darkmantle, I was really disappointed with it, and it was a lot worse than I expected, and I replaced it a lot sooner than I expected. And all in all, I can't say I recommend dagger rogues go for Darkmantle. All right, so in conclusion, I once again want to say that the set is very good as a set of catch-up gear. So if you are like pre-raid bis, fresh 60, Darkmantle is going to catch you up to speed very quickly, and it is definitely worth getting. If you are a sword rogue, it is going to be a set of gear that you'll use for quite a while. And even though you might replace it a little sooner than expected because of the availability of the 2.5 tokens, you're still going to use it for quite a while. So really, it's just dagger rogues that I really would hesitate to recommend this gear for, unless you know for certain that you're not going to be getting tier for a long time, which again, I don't specifically the head. I mean, it's only a matter of time before it comes to you, unless your guild is doing something strange with the helm tokens, because the rogue head is definitely the best helm that can be created from that token. So unless something weird's going on, I really can't recommend going for Darkmantle, even if you're not best in slot. As long as you're kind of close to best in slot as a dagger rogue, I cannot recommend going for Darkmantle. Not only was it worse than I expected on the fights where I used it, I also just didn't use it in as many fights as I expected, and was glad to replace it as soon as I could. So thanks for watching, guys. Follow my Twitch if you want to, see me raiding AQ or PvPing. And, thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time.